Welcome to Brands Hatch for qualifying ahead of round 13 of the iRacing British Touring Car Championship here on BSR TV with me, Chris Cohen, and joining us in the commentary box shortly will be my colleague Dan Blake, and the cars just now finishing their very extended, shall we say, practice session, ready to go onto the track for the qualifying, which is going to be 30 minutes. The information is on your screen there, followed by 3 races, 16 laps around the Indy circuit of Brands Hatch, the roughly half-length circuit here, 6 or 7 turns depending on how you count them. The first race will be determined by qualifying, and the second race will be determined by the results of the first, and the final race will be the exciting reverse grid where the first 10 positions will be reversed. Just before we head to the track, let's have a look at the season standings, because it is hotting up in the championship. Adam Terry in the Dynojet car holds out the lead in the championship after 12 rounds by just 1 point over eBay's Ellis Stevens. And then there's a little bit of a gap. Simon Field back in 3rd, Andreas Katz in 4th, but just a few points behind, and Ignacio Pinella is in 5th position at the moment. But as you can see from the table that's on your screen there, eBay Motors claiming 4 out of the top 6 places in the championship. Very strong representation from that particular team. They've been doing particularly well, although last time out we saw a return from Ignacio Pinella, who really didn't get back on form as he came back to Laguna Seca for rounds 10, 11 and 12, and he really couldn't get on the pace and didn't score any points, in fact, and so far hasn't shown up at the track for today's session, so might not get any points there either. Meanwhile, Andreas Katz is coming back into the action after missing Laguna Seca, missing out on a few of the points he could have got there. He was looking like he would have been in the top 3, but that might well change after today's session. We'll have to see. So Steve Richardson 6th, Richard Wild then in 7th position, just behind him Dave Grunnell 8th, and Nick McCarron in 9th. Paul Bird takes the 10th spot. Coming further down the table, Laura Bond for KX Momentum in 11th place, who is another no-show today so far. That might change, but that will cost her potentially a healthy crop of points from these 3 races. Jack Tucker, Peter Van Gool, Daniel Hunt, Oscar Mangan, who is now out of the championship and won't score any more points. Sean Lay and Craig Ray share 16th place, Graham Smith down in 18th, Ben Kelly McCauley, who I believe is also now withdrawn from the championship, is in 19th, and Chris Shaw, joint 19th, rounds out the top 20. So let's head over to the track now and watch this qualifying, which is bound to be manic on this short track where the lap times should be in the 47-48 second region. We're looking at 32 cars. Bear in mind the drivers don't have to set a qualifying session time if they don't want, but 32 cars on this track. If they were all out on track, they could potentially be separated by a maximum of 1.5 seconds each. That's going to make for some exciting action, that's for sure. So the qualifying time so far, Richard Wild is on pole, Simon Field 2nd, and Chepelevsky, a new entry into the championship this week, is in 3rd position as the Cobra Lopez, another new entry, takes pole position from Richard Wild by 0.004, 4,000th of a second there, in a 47.748, and we have seen quicker times during the practice session, so this is still very early on. We've still got over 25 minutes to go in this qualifying session. So we're picking up the pace then with Dan Hunt, who is out on the track in a Speedworks motorsport car. We'll stay with Dan Hunt for a moment and see how he does. This is probably his outlap. Dan running some good practice times. He's looking competitive for a top 10 grid position, hopefully. There's a 30-minute qualifying session, as I mentioned, so there's plenty of time there to get in a good few laps. Although, with the numbers on the grid, it could well be a case of picking your moment, avoiding the traffic, and staying out of trouble. Goes over the timing line then. Starts a flying lap. His best so far is a 48.0 as he just runs wide out of paddock. It's a 48.0 and just outside that 47-second margin. Quite a few of the top 10 drivers managing that margin, and the entire field really split by just a few seconds, so a very tight qualifying session. These drivers are really going to have to be on form around this tight, twisty track. On board with Dan Hunt then as he comes through Surtees into clearways to round the final corner. Another of his Speedworks colleagues is up in front of him. He's on the power hard as he comes over the timing line. Can he improve? He can't. It's a 48.5 this time around, which means he is down in 8th place at the moment. That could all change, and one man you will really want to watch during this race is the new entry into the championship, Ade Koba Lopez, who is driving for Team Club 44 and is currently your pole position man. If the practice session is anything to go by, he is most likely to end up on pole. Little bit of traffic as he comes down into paddock. He's missed his braking point there, misses the apex. He's going to probably bail out of this lap and give it another go. On board with the eBay Motors then of Andreas Katz, currently sitting in 5th. I know he won't be satisfied with his 5th place at the moment. Looking to improve on that. Here's the end of his outlap. Over the timing line. On the brakes into paddock. He's not hit that apex. So another driver deciding to give up on that particular lap. Let's take a look at Craig Ray as he comes through Surtees and into clearways to end this lap. Gets a little bit out of shape there. Craig sitting in the 14th spot in the Speedworks Motorsport car, 48.3. Looking to improve on that this time. That clearways corner will probably cost him that. 48.7 this time as he gets on the brakes, nice and tight into paddock. Runs wide on the exit. It's on the grass, on the gravel rather. That might well invalidate his time. Hard on the brakes into Druids. He's probably going to want to keep it a bit tighter than that to get the qualifying time down. Through Graham Hill, uses a lot of the runoff area as most of the drivers will. And then the left-right. Just want to clip that curb on the inside, clip the other curb, hard on the brakes, and turn it into clearways and wait until the car comes back on the grip, on the power. So it doesn't look like an improvement this time from Mr. Ray. 48.8, plenty of time left in the session, still 22 minutes. Oh, and one of the Wicks cars as well, and that's one of the Wicks cars taking out the Iwasa Racing. Craig Ray managing to keep out of that one. What might be interesting to watch as well is the progress of Adam Terry in this session. This is it's been stated by quite a few of the drivers, and if you were watching last week you would have heard them say this yourself quite frequently, that Brands is their favourite track on the series schedule. Adam has been struggling, I've got to say. He's usually up there in the top 3, top 5, but his times have not been of that calibre in this session so far. He's running a little bit slowly, perhaps trying to give himself a little bit more room on this outlap before he starts his flying lap. He's winding up then to go down the start-finish straight. He's got a good gap ahead of him. On the brakes then, as one of the eBay cars comes out. Slightly wide. Through paddock, just clips the gravel, that shouldn't be a problem. On the brakes into Druids, the hairpin right-hander. Looks to be a good exit from Druids. As it comes down to Graham Hill Bend, the left-hander just takes quite a bit in fact, of the apex on there. Not really a problem in these cars, of course. Open wheel might well be different, but you can really mount the curves as much as you like with these cars. And getting a little bit out of shape on the last part of the lap. Adam's currently on a 47.9, looking to improve on that. Excuse me. And 48.2 last time out, so he's 0.3 off his time there, and still a way off being in that top 5 spot as he pulls the car off the track. Dave Granilek, driving for KX Momentum, has the AMD tuning car up in front of him. Oh, and he's put that one well wide, and that's going to end his qualifying session for now. I'm sure he'll be back out on the track later. Peter Van Gool then, one man we haven't spoken about in this qualifying session yet. Currently in the pits on a 48.6, so we'll come back to him. Simon Topham for Wix Racing, the other Simon for Wix Racing. There are 2 of them in the team, just to make things even more confusing. Currently on a 49.3, won't improve on that this time round, I don't think. He's currently down in 25th, so I know he'll want to get himself higher up on the grid than that before the end of the session. But with the 3 or 4 new drivers this week, all of whom seem to have pretty good pace, it's going to be very difficult for some of these drivers to get high up on the grid. There's 3 races here, each one's 15 minutes, remember, so even if you don't have a good result in one of the races, you've got 2 other races to grab as many points as you can. Let's see what Simon can do as one of the Addison Lees is up in front of him. Gets a bit wide, lets one of the Speedworks go through. Top 3 then. After about 12 minutes of qualifying, Cobra Lopez still on pole position. Provisional pole, I should say. Richard Wilde just 9 thousandths slower than Simon Field in 3rd. Right, it's all hell breaking loose down there at Druids. That's the end of a few drivers' laps. We switch over to Eckhart von Glan then, driving for Dynojet, and his best lap time so far is a 49.0, so that puts him about... oh, we've lost him. See if we can get the camera back onto Eckhart there. That puts him about halfway down the grid at the moment. Well, a little bit further than that, 25th. So he'll be looking to improve on that. We'll stay with him around this lap as he comes down into Graham Hill. He's got one of the airwaves behind him, so he has to take a very strange line through there, and yeah, it's too wide. He's gone too wide there. So he won't improve on the time this time round. Now another new entry into the championship this week is this man Mark Fletcher, driving for RCIB Insurance, and RCIB don't have any drivers in the championship inside the top 30 at the moment for various reasons, and this man could change things. He's coming into the championship late. 13 will be his first round as he just tries to get around one of the Pertecs. Pertec lets him go. He's on a 48.0 at the moment, which is good enough for 8th place. And oh, whoa, big sideways moment in clear ways. He keeps it on the track, and I think that's an outlap from Mark there as he comes across the start-finish line to start a flying lap. Through paddock then, as one of the cars on the inside gets out of the way for him in Druids. It's a good exit. It's keeping it nice and tight. Down to turn 3, Graham Hill bend. Uses that runoff area. All 4 wheels on the runoff area. Not going to invalidate your time on that particular corner. That's perfectly allowed. Nicely clips both those curbs. Gets on the brakes nice and early for clear ways. And just seemed to absolutely stick to the road like a wine gum round that corner as he came out of clearways. Comes over the line then, 48.2, not an improvement for Mark Fletcher, but very fast pace indeed. So we currently have 5 drivers inside the 47-second bracket. Expect that to increase as we're about now.
Did I just hear you say wine gums, Chris?
I did. Do you want one?
Well, that sort of brought me into conversation, but it looks like so far we're having a good qualifying session. Our new driver, Ade Koba Lopez, the Club 44 machine, its first outing, and it's already at the moment on provisional pole with a 47.629, so a great start for them.
Absolutely, with 5 drivers inside that 47-second bracket. Having said there was a fast practice session, we're expecting a few more drivers to enter that particular bracket, but an incredibly fast time from the Cobra. The new entry, he just comes into this championship and looks to be on pole at the moment. I mean, that's an impressive feat for anyone coming in for the first time. Must be quite daunting, especially against this level of competition.
Yeah, a very good, close level of competition, but remember last time we thought the time was quick enough, but others managed to eclipse it, so I don't quite think the fast times are over, but it's a very good benchmark time for Koba Lopez. If it is pole, then fair play to him.
And we're just having a look now at Richard Wild. He's got a lot of traffic in front of him on a 47.752, which is putting him in second place at the moment. That could all change though. I fully expect some of these grid positions to shift around before the end of the qualifying session. The drive cool ahead of him is going to get in the way. And
he's been blocked that lap.
He has, yeah.
Yeah, that car there, Mark Fletcher's blocked him and he's all over the gravel, and that really is a shame for Richard Wild, who was the winner of one of our races at Laguna Seca last time out, but I think that was a very good lap for him, but he's been blocked, so we'll be very disappointed with that.
Yeah, indeed he will, and we now have, I believe, 33 cars setting qualifying times here, and Dan, you've got to say that's a lot of cars for this size of track.
Yeah, I think going into Druids for the first time and Graham Hill could be quite lively, let's put it that way.
Well, they've got to get through paddock first, obviously, the first bend, and that's a blind entry right-hander where you don't see the apex till very late. You get on the brakes, you kind of pray you've got on the brakes at the right moment, and then you just wait until the car comes back to you down the hill, pushing you towards the outside. On the first lap, with so many cars all over the place, we do have quite a real danger of there being a multi-car incident on that first corner.
Yeah, there's no safety cars unfortunately on this one, but I think you're right. I think the first couple of laps certainly are going to be very interesting, and Paddock Hill is a corner where things could go badly wrong. We've seen in the past in these touring car races, even before Paddock Hill, there's been problems, so hopefully they'll be able to keep it in line, but I think we won't. I think we're going to be struggling with the luck on the first couple of laps.
Absolutely, and I think we're in for 3 very entertaining races here, just by virtue of the fact that there's so many cars in the field, but also the fact that the top 5 or 10 drivers are so close together. And I think as long as they manage to keep out of trouble and don't split the field up on the first lap, I think we're in pretty good stead there. So I'm sorry,
yeah,
are you typing on a keyboard or a typewriter there?
Okay. Well, not at the moment, but Adam Terry and Ellis Stevens 1 point apart, and they've got a bit of a gap to Simon Field with 95, so those 2 drivers will be hoping that if they can get a decent meeting here, they can pull out a bit more closer, because despite the fact that it's about 60 points, I think, something like that. My maths isn't great, but I think about 60 points is the difference, and that's a Simon Fields had a drop out there, so he'll be hoping to get in very quickly, because that would be a big blow for him if he has to miss a start.
Absolutely. Ellis Stevens, who is currently second in the championship, down in 11th in the qualifying session with about 11 minutes to go. The 48.1, we've seen him run very quick times. He was in the top 5 during the practice session. He'll want to improve that time because his main championship contender, Adam Terry, is currently in 6th position, so he doesn't want to be 5 places behind on that starting grid.
No, he wants to be as close to Adam Terry as possible, with Simon Field dropping out, although Simon Field is in 4th position at the moment, so if he gets back in, he'll be in a better position than Terry and Stevens currently, and he's got Andreas Katz as well. So 3rd and 4th in the championship. We're actually faring a little bit better than our top 2 at the moment, but there's still 10 minutes of the session for that to change.
And how about this track? How would you set these cars up to go around this track? Because these are big, bulky cars on what is quite a tight, twisty track. What would be your recommendation for anyone coming out here to do this?
Certainly a lot different from last week. Laguna Seca is a completely different world to this place, but I think you want to have the handling really, because there's some corners here like Paddock Hill, I don't think you want it so much for speed, apart from maybe at the front straight. You want to have something which handles well in the corners and acceleration really. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, there's a wide variety of setups on display here. We obviously don't get to see we get to see the end result. We don't get to see the setups themselves, but with 4 out of the first 6 drivers in the championship driving for Team eBay, you've got to say those guys are in a position to sort of extend their dominance almost over the championship. But Adam Terry is driving for Dynojet. He is in the first position, so although we didn't see him finish the 3rd race very strongly last week at Laguna Seca, right?
No, but Ellis Stevens has just gone up to 6th position, 6 thousandths ahead of Adam Terry, so Ellis Stevens has put himself into 6th position.
Wow, so that's changed everything with 9 minutes to go in this session from Brands Hatch. And we're just having a quick look now at Stephen Ridley, currently in 24th position with a 48.8. Didn't improve on it last time around as one of the dyno jets is off into the gravel there. But what do you think? Do you think Stevens can hold it if he gets the jump on Terry on the grid?
It's going to be a very long race. I think it's going to be interesting though, them right together, so they'll be racing harder than normal, I think, because they know that each other are the championship rivals, so it'll be interesting to see how that one turns out going into Paddock Hill and Druids. I don't think they want to give much space to each other, that's one thing I know.
Yeah, absolutely no love lost between those two guys. But with the form of Cobra Lopez, who is currently on pole, we haven't seen him in a race yet in this series. This is his first time out, so it's a qualifying session ahead of the race at the moment. He's got 3 races there. Is there a chance that he might just be good at qualifying and not necessarily on the race pace?
That's something we'll have to find out in these next 3 races, but yeah, there is a chance that Ade Cobra Lopez is someone who's very good at hot lapping and putting one lap together, but in a race he's got to do it consistently, so be interesting to see if that pace is race pace or if he can just do it over 1 lap.
Absolutely, and another new entry into the championship this time round is current 19th position Ryan Littlemore, who hasn't had time to paint his car ahead of the session. It's a late entry as he just pulls into the pits there. He's 19th at the moment, but that could all change. We've got 7 minutes to go in the session as we take a quick look at Marcus Naris driving for KX Momentum. He's 14th. He's on a 48.2 at the moment, and I mean, you've got to say that is a very strong grid. If you're driving a 48.2 and you find yourself halfway down the grid, you've got to be thinking, what have I got to do to get myself higher up? Surely that's a good time.
Yeah, 48.2 is a very good time. I had a little go on this track earlier in the week using the baseline, and I could probably spend about an hour doing it, get a 48.5, so very, very quick and very competitive. The fastest time of 47.6, which really is quite something, and Simon Fields managed to get into the session again, so you might have time just for maybe one more run.
Absolutely, he's down in 5th at the moment. He's the 3rd place man in the championship. He has got that 50 point, well, roughly, like you said, roughly 50 or 60 point gap between him and the top 2. So assuming that he gets 3 solid finishes here, and maybe Stevens or Terry drop the ball in one of the races, or maybe someone takes them out. This is touring car racing after all. He could well close that gap, and we're around the midpoint of the season now. This is rounds 13, 14, 15 out of a 27 round season. So it's still all to play for, really. I mean, I don't think you could say at the moment that either Terry or Stevens have got enough of a gap to be comfortable in their current position.
Oh, certainly not. But I also think Andreas Katz has something to say about that as well. He's only 3 points behind Simon Field, and he's already got 4 wins out of our 12 races. So can't rule Andreas Katz out, and I think Katz will be looking for a strong meeting on his return, and I won't be surprised to see him on the top step of the podium.
And we're just on board with Katz at the moment, who is currently 3rd on the grid, and this must be alien territory for Andreas Katz, because he's quite used to being on pole. He's won 4 races in the championship so far. That's more than any other driver, and of those races he's actually gone pole to flag in 2 of them. So he was looking to dominate, but I mean, as with any driver, that you're going to get some tracks where you do really well and some tracks where you just naturally struggle, I suppose. So well, it remains to be seen whether this is one of Katz's stronger tracks, but a 3rd place on the grid, he could well come out of this with a podium position.
Yeah, 3rd place on the grid certainly is not a bad place to be in. I think this track we'll see quite a few of the UK and I drivers fare a bit stronger than they did at Laguna Seca, because this is the track which you think they would know a lot better than Laguna. So I think some of the UK and I guys probably will have more comfortable, shall we say, than they were last week.
Absolutely, and of course with this season, the series rather, being open to absolutely anyone's free to join. You don't have to be in the UK and I club. You could be from anywhere, as is this man, Andreas Katz, driving for eBay Motors. It is a focus on the free tracks. So Brands Hatch obviously is not a free track on the iRacing service, but most of them are. Lime Rock Park, Laguna Seca, Summit Point, Charlotte Motor Speedway as well, which is the road version. They are all free. So it does limit the track selection available within the service. Does limit the choice of track for this series, I suppose. But is that something you'd particularly enjoy? Do you think, seeing more of the British classics coming into iRacing?
I'm very looking forward to Thruxton coming along. Thruxton and Croft and Snetterton, there's some really good tracks. Also the remodel of Silverstone with the new arena section, that's something to look forward to as well. And once those are all out, I think we really could see some really good British touring car championships being formed on iRacing, because the majority of the tracks will be here, and especially with the NGTC Civic and BMW hopefully coming in the next, hopefully we'll say the next year or so, but you never know of iRacing. But we could really have a strong scene for touring car racing in the future here.
Absolutely, as Andreas Katz has just taken 2nd place with 3 minutes to go here. He's edged out Richard Wilde by, what is that, 0.08 of a second, but not good enough for pole down.
No, not quite good enough. He was just over a tenth quicker, but Ade Coba Lopez is still 0.7, but Katz is coming out again for one final run, so this is going to be it. It's all or nothing for Andreas Katz. He's got about 2.5 minutes to go if he wants to try and knock Ade Coba Lopez off of a debut pole position.
As we watch Stelian Chepelevsky coming around the track in the Addison Lee Racing machine down through Graham Hill Bend in one of his final laps. Of course, 47-second laps, I mean, you can get quite a few in, even though there's only a couple of minutes left. But this man currently in 4th position, and not by much either. Currently edging out Ellis Stevens and Simon Field. Adam Terry now dropped down to 7th place, an impressive 8th for Dave Grunill. A new entry, Mark Fletcher, is in 9th place in the RCIB machine. Hunt is in 10th. Very impressive position for him as well. McCarran only managing 11th now, and McCarran performing quite strongly at Laguna Seca. Will be disappointed if things stay that way. Bottas is back in this week. John Richardson 13th, Naris 14th, Janowski, another new entry, in 15th, and Chris Shaw is in 16th place. So, I mean, almost all of the new entries into this championship, interestingly enough, are going through into the top 10 or 15 places, which could make this rather interesting, because we don't know what their race style is. You'll get some of these drivers who will, be conservative, take their chances when they come along, but otherwise stay out of trouble, and you get some that, these are big muscular cars that can take a good beating, so some drivers not afraid to stick their elbows out and get stuck in.
Oh, nothing like a bit of panel bashing and door banging with touring car racing then, but I know what you mean. Also, Nick McCarran up into the top 10 now, he's into 9th position, so Nick McCarron with an improvement now in 9 stages of the session.
And one of the biggest movers is Marcus Naris for KX Momentum, is now in 8th position. So where did that come from? That's an impressive time as well.
Very impressive, top KX runner. But as you were saying earlier, I think it'd be interesting to see the driving style of our new drivers, because it's new territory for most of these guys. They've raced with some of these for the rest of the season, but with the new guys, they won't know if they're going to be aggressive, if they're going to be more relaxed. So it's a bit of a learning experience for everyone really with these new drivers in the field, especially when they're right up at the top end of it.
And we're just, as the closing stages of the qualifying session are coming along now, we'll just join up with Andreas Katz for one more lap around this very short, tight track. As he comes now down through Paddock Hill Bend, he's got a bit of traffic up in front of him that might end up posing him a problem. He will be able to finish out this lap even though the time is gone, isn't that right? Oh, he decides
he's
not
aborting
to.
the lap anyway, so Andreas Katz has aborted it. His last lap though was 47.6, which has still been good enough to put him in 2nd place, where he already is. It was another good lap, but not quite enough. So I think L.A. Coba Lopez could very well be getting his first pole position on this debut race.
Absolutely, and we'll wrap up the qualifying session there. We'll move over to the grid in just a moment.
Richard Wilde has gone 2nd. Sorry to interrupt you, Chris, but Richard Wilde has gone joint 2nd with Andreas Katz, exactly the same lap time of 47.662. So Richard Wilde, right at the death, has delivered.
It's an amazing time, it really is. He's actually shown as 1,000th quicker on the timing screen here, so it might be a rounding up or a rounding down, as the case may be. But well, it changes the top 3 anyway. Cobra Lopez then in pole position, Wilde 2nd, Katz 3rd. Join us in just a moment for race 1 from Brands Hatch.